They were impersonating county officials. But what they didn't know was the man inside used to interrogate terrorists. Before we begin, if you believe in stories that honor quiet courage, truth over noise, and the kind of strength that doesn't demand the spotlight, then like, comment, and subscribe. The sound came just after 4 p.m., subtle, distant, barely enough to make the wind pause. But Gideon Lane noticed. He always noticed. The shuffle of gravel beneath slow-rolling tires. The clink of a chain gate disturbed. A pause. Then silence. He looked up from the plank he was measuring and squinted toward the end of the drive. The late sun flared over the ridge behind him, painting the horizon in burnt gold and muted lavender. The smell of cedar and horses hung in the dry air. Jasper, his blue heeler, froze beside the barn door, ears stiff, body still. He was looking at the same thing Gideon was now watching. A white van, unmarked, parked just outside the front gate. Uninvited. Gideon wiped his hands on his faded jeans and walked slowly to the edge of the porch, not in a hurry, not tense, just alert. The boards creaked softly beneath his boots. His posture was casual, almost bored. But his eyes? Sharp, measuring, seeing things most would miss. The van's engine idled for a moment before the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, mid-30s maybe, khakis, and a polo shirt with the stitched logo on the chest that read, County Home Resilience Program. Generic, vague enough to pass, official enough to bluff. He held a clipboard in one hand and adjusted his sunglasses with the other as he scanned the property. The man smiled, walking toward the gate. Behind him, the passenger door opened. A second man stepped out, taller, broader, no clipboard, no smile, just sunglasses, boots, and an expression like concrete. He didn't look like a surveyor. He looked like backup. They moved slowly, calculated, like they'd done this a dozen times before. Gideon didn't move. He didn't wave. He just waited, one hand resting lightly on the porch post, the other hanging by his side. Jasper patted down from the barn and took his place beside him. Afternoon, sir. Clipboard guy called, cheerful and rehearsed. You Gideon Lane? Who's asking? Gideon replied. Flat. Neutral. Jason Miller. The man said, tapping the logo on his chest. We're contractors working with the County Home Resilience Initiative. Wildfire mitigation program. You should have received a notice in the mail. Gideon raised an eyebrow. I didn't. Jason smiled wider. Well, that happens. Postal delays. You know how it is. But we're surveying properties out here. Checking tree lines, defensible space, perimeter compliance. All standard stuff. You with the county? Gideon asked. Working under them. Subcontracted. Countywide program. We're just here to help folks qualify for grant money. Jasper let out a low sound in his throat. Not quite a growl, but not nothing either. Got ID? Gideon asked. Still not moving. Jason hesitated. We're field contractors. We don't carry badge IDs, but we've got the forms right here. He raised the clipboard. C. Pre-authorization for inspection and a waiver for access, if you choose to sign on. No seal, Gideon said. No county stamp. No signature line. Jason chuckled. Well, they don't always stamp the field copies. I've seen a real county inspection form, Gideon interrupted. That's not it. The taller guy, silent until now, stepped forward. We just need to walk the perimeter, he said. Voice low, solid. Won't take 10 minutes. Gideon stepped down from the porch, slow and measured. Dust lifted beneath his boots. Jasper followed. You too new to this area? He asked. Jason's smile faltered. First time working this district, yes. You usually roll up without appointments? Well, outreach is part of the new policy. We canvass in advance. Preventative measures. Like I said, totally voluntary. You boys got insurance? Sir, you walk onto someone's land and trip over a fence post. Break your leg. Who's liable? Jason paused. It's covered through the county program. Then you'll have proof of coverage. We don't carry that on us. Gideon tilted his head. Convenient. The second man's jaw tightened. You think we're lying? I think you're hoping no one asks questions. Jason's smile was gone now. Sir, we're trying to help. No, Gideon said. You're trying to intimidate. You're betting I don't know my zoning codes, that I'll hear county enfold. Jason raised his clipboard again. Look, if we don't log your property today, you could be flagged non-compliant. That comes with potential fines. You think you scare me with a clipboard and a logo? Gideon asked. He was standing at the gate now, hand resting gently on the top rail. You don't know who we've already helped, Jason said. I know exactly what you're doing, Gideon said, because you're not the first to try it. Silence. Last year, someone came through Ash Fork claiming to be with the fire marshal, Gideon continued. Same pitch. Forms. Fines. Inspections. Turned out they were casing properties. Got caught pulling copper pipe out of a barn. We're not thieves, the second man said. Flat. Defensive. No, Gideon asked. Then tell me who your county contact is. Jason opened his mouth, closed it again. What agency? Gideon pressed. Which office? What's your supervisor's name? Jason looked at the other man, then back to Gideon. You're being difficult. I'm being thorough. From across the road, a pickup rolled to a stop. Old. Rusty. Familiar. Mrs. Delaney. She rolled down the window. You good, Gideon? He gave her a slow nod. Just educating some visitors. Jason turned toward the road, jaw tight. The second man shifted again, arms crossed now. You don't want an audience? Gideon asked. That's too bad. You don't want to cooperate. Jason said. Fine. We'll log you as high risk. You'll get a letter. You log anything, Gideon said, and I'll be the one making calls. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his phone, tapped the screen once, held it up. Recording. Jason's face twitched. You can't. I can. Siren. Far off. Not loud yet, but real. You called the cops. Jason snapped. 15 minutes ago, Gideon said. Told them I had unauthorized personnel on private land. Jason turned to the second man. We're done here. The taller man hesitated, looked at Gideon, looked at Jasper, then nodded once. They turned and walked. No more words. Just boots on gravel. Door slamming. Engine turning. Dust rose as the van reversed down the long drive. Gideon didn't move until they were gone. Then he turned to Jasper. Let's get back to work. Gideon didn't go back to hammering right away. He stood on the porch with his arms folded, watching the tail of dust settle into the afternoon heat, like it had never been disturbed at all. But something in his chest hadn't settled. Not yet. He glanced toward the ridgeline behind the barn, where a line of cottonwoods trembled in the breeze. Beyond that was another property, 5 acres that used to belong to a Vietnam vet who passed away last spring. The new owners hadn't moved in yet. Unwatched. Empty. He didn't like the idea of those men having seen it. Jasper nudged his leg, waiting. Gideon gave him a soft pat on the head and pulled out his phone again. He opened the Notes app, jotted a few details. Date, time, description of the van, license plate, what he could remember. Then he drafted a quick message to Deputy Boone. Simple. Factual. 2 men posing as county contractors attempted to enter property under false pretense. Claimed wildfire assessment. No ID. No permit. Suspicious behavior. Van possibly casing remote homes. Recorded interaction. Please advise if official report needed. He hit send. Then he went back to the awning, raised a hammer, and began driving in the next nail. By the time the sun dipped beneath the ridge, casting long shadows across the pasture, Gideon had finished the frame. He fed the horses, checked the gate locks, and made a mental note to replace the rusted hinge on the west side. It squeaked more than it should. Inside, he set a pot of coffee on the stove, not because he needed it, but because habit sometimes pretended to be comfort. He peeled off his gloves and rubbed the stiffness from his fingers. He'd broken that hand once, back in Kandahar. It always ached before weather changes. Jasper curled up by the door, with one ear half cocked, always alert. Gideon pulled out the chair by the window and sat where he could still see the front gate. Not paranoid, just prepared. Boone texted back 2 hours later. Got your note. No program by that name. We've had 2 similar complaints in last week. Sending someone tomorrow to take your statement. Keep your footage handy. Stay sharp. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. The deputy showed up just after 10 a.m. the next morning. Not Boone this time, but a younger guy, maybe 30, maybe less. Hair too neat, uniform too clean. He looked out of place out here. Gideon met him on the porch. Deputy Rowe, the man introduced. Got your file from Carla Boone. Gideon nodded. Come on in. He offered coffee. Rowe declined. Too much energy. Kept checking his surroundings, like he was waiting for a bear to leap from behind the shed. Gideon showed him the footage. Just a few minutes. Audio clear. Faces visible. Rowe made a few notes, then said, You didn't let them inside? No. Why not? Gideon gave him a look. Rowe coughed. Right. Guess I wouldn't either. You hear about them hitting other properties? Rowe nodded. Yeah. Dry Creek, Ash Fork, out near Snowflake. Same MO unannounced visits. Flashy documents. No follow-up. Anyone get taken? Rowe hesitated. One couple. Gave over $600 for what they were told was a property compliance credit. The number they were told to call disconnected the next day. Anyone arrested yet? Not yet. We got plates, but the van's a rental under a stolen identity. Phoenix address. Fake. They're good. They're getting sloppy, Gideon said. Or cocky. Rowe nodded. Might be both. He filed the report, thanked Gideon, and headed out. Gideon watched him drive off. The sound of the cruiser faded behind the trees. Jasper sat beside him, tail thumping once. Let's check the fence lines, Gideon muttered. They walked the entire perimeter. East fence, the north bluff, the southern drop near the Dry Creek bed. He checked the gate latches, the trail cams, and the old coyote traps near the outer edges, mostly for show now, but still maintained. When they got back, the sun was high. Hot. Dry wind kicked up dust over the gravel drive. He looked toward the horizon, just in case they came back. The third day after the van appeared, Gideon got a knock on the door that wasn't expected. And it wasn't law enforcement. It was a woman. Early 30s, maybe. Worn boots. Denim shirt with a name patch stitched over the chest. L. Knox. The edges of the patch were frayed, like it had been sewn and resewn more than once. She stood with her hand on her hip, and a clipboard tucked under her arm. But this time, the clipboard wasn't what caught Gideon's attention. It was the badge hanging around her neck. County issued. Laminate seal. Barcode. She saw the look on his face, and held it up without being asked. I'm real, she said, voice even, dry as dust. Thought you'd like to check before you said anything. Appreciate it, Gideon replied, and opened the door. Inside, she glanced around the space, walls lined with reclaimed lumber, tools stacked neatly near the workbench, old ceramic mugs drying by the sink. I'm Leah Knox, County Code Office. We got a flag on your report. Figured it might be worth following up in person. Boone didn't mention sending someone. She didn't. I saw the footage. My supervisor pushed it through. She sat without being asked. Took a pen from behind her ear. Mind if I ask a few questions? Go ahead. She clicked the pen. You say they used the term County Home Resilience Initiative. That's right. You ever heard of that program before? Nope. Because it doesn't exist, she said. Not under that name. There was a grant proposed last year for wildfire impact zones, but it got shot down before it reached review. Then where'd they get the name? Leah shrugged. It was listed in an old public meeting transcript. Maybe someone scraped the files looking for something believable. Gideon nodded slowly. They had the language right, he said. Talked about mitigation, tree-line buffers, perimeter codes. That info's public, she replied, but most folks don't know how to check. That's what they're counting on. She leaned forward. They tried this on you because you're remote. No close neighbors. Fewer prying eyes. He looked toward the window. But they didn't count on you being careful, she added. I've seen enough con men to know when someone's selling air, he said. She gave a tight smile. Well, we've seen spikes in this scam pattern across 4 counties. Different names, different shirts. Sometimes they pretend to be with Firewatch. Sometimes FEMA. Even had one crew claim they were with USDA Livestock Division. Gideon raised an eyebrow. Yeah, said they were inspecting feed stations for contamination risk. People bought it. And you think it's one ring? Gideon asked. We're not sure yet. Could be organized. Could be copycats. The scary part is it's getting bolder. She reached into her folder and pulled out a grainy still frame. Trail cam footage. 2 figures walking past a barn in broad daylight. That's them, she said. Same guys you saw. Taken 2 days before your report. They didn't knock on the door. Just walked the fence. Camera caught them heading back to the van with bolt cutters. Anyone home? Gideon asked. Owner was out of town. They break in. Didn't have to. Lock was old. Hinge popped. He sat back in his chair. The wood creaked beneath him. What's the angle? He asked. You think they're just stealing tools? She hesitated. That's part of it. But we think they're testing more than locks. They're looking for routines, patterns, people who live alone, properties that don't have alarms. Gideon didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, that means they're not just scammers. No, she agreed. They're predators. That night, Gideon stood on the edge of his porch, eyes scanning the darkness. Jasper sat beside him, motionless. The moon hung low, orange and swollen. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled once and fell silent. He walked the property again, checked every gate, repositioned one of the trail cams to catch the back lot, installed motion light on the barn, cleaned the old Winchester just in case. He wasn't expecting trouble, but he knew better than to assume it wouldn't come. The next morning, word started spreading. First, it was a forwarded message from Mrs. Delaney, who'd seen a post on the Holbrook Neighborhood Watch page. Then a voicemail from a man named Ray in Taylor, someone Gideon barely remembered meeting at the co-op last spring. Then Boone herself called. They tried again, she said. Same van. No, same guy's new van. Painted logo this time. Real flashy. Where? Camp Verde. They told a retired teacher she was at risk of losing her homeowner's insurance if she didn't allow a property inspection. She let them in. Just the front yard. They didn't push further. But when she asked for ID, they left. Boone sighed on the line. I hate this, she said. People out here just want peace. These guys are exploiting that. Have you caught any of them? Working on it. The kid in the van, the one you saw hiding. He was picked up yesterday near Cottonwood. His name's Trey Willis. 22. No priors. He cracked pretty fast. And said he thought it was just a gig. Said they told him they were helping people qualify for state programs. Gideon grunted. That's a script. I know, but he gave up a name. Dane Carter. The big one. That match your guy. Sounds about right. Well, he's still out there. Clipboard guy too, name's Jarvis. Probably aliases. They always are. We're coordinating with other departments. Try and put out a bulletin. You need to move faster. I know. The line went quiet for a beat. Then Boone added, you ever think about signing on part-time? We could use someone like you. Gideon laughed once, dry and without humor. I already served. Doesn't mean you're done. I am. That night, he received a letter. No stamp. No return address. Just 3 words on the outside. You were warned. Inside, a printed page. A still image of his house, taken from a distance. Maybe from the ridge. Maybe from the road. The photo was grainy, low resolution. But it was recent. The horses were in the same place he'd left them that morning. Jasper growled the moment Gideon unfolded the paper. He didn't panic. He didn't call Boone. He just lit a match, held it to the corner, and watched the paper curl into flame. Then he picked up the phone and made a different call. a quieter one, to someone who didn't wear a badge anymore, but still knew how to answer. The man Gideon called was named Ellis Creed. They'd served together in a different lifetime, in a place that didn't exist on any tourist maps. Gideon hadn't spoken to him in nearly 4 years, not since Ellis had sold his last security contract and gone off-grid in a cabin near the Mogollon Rim. But some calls don't need catching up. Some voices skip pleasantries, because the sound of them already says everything. Ellis didn't ask why Gideon was calling. He just said, "I'll be there by morning." True to his word, Ellis showed up with nothing more than a canvas duffel, a thermos of coffee, and a low growl in his voice that hadn't dulled with time. They sat on the porch that afternoon, not speaking for a while, just listening to the sound of the breeze pushing through cottonwoods and the scrape of Jasper's paws across the floorboards. When Gideon finally handed him the photo, the one with his house taken from the ridge, Ellis didn't say a word. He just stared at it, blinked once, and folded it in half without breaking eye contact. "They're casing homes," Gideon said. "Boone thinks it's more than fraud. Could be staging." "Could be?" Ellis asked. Gideon nodded. "She doesn't want to jump to conclusions. Says they haven't crossed the line." Ellis took a long sip of coffee. "They crossed it when they took that picture." The two men spent the next 12 hours reinforcing the perimeter. They adjusted the trail cams, set them higher, wider angles, replaced 2 old motion sensors with newer ones Ellis had brought with him, calibrated them to body heat instead of motion alone, so the wind wouldn't set them off, but a person would. They checked the windows, doors, gates, added a second lock to the east barn, positioned one game cam to face the road itself, right where the white van had stopped the first time. It wasn't paranoia. It was experience. They didn't speak much while they worked. Gideon handed tools without asking. Ellis adjusted wires without needing to be told where. Their movements fit together like men who'd survived things by paying attention to the small details. That night, Gideon cooked while Ellis loaded his pistol. Neither of them asked if it would be needed. Over dinner, Ellis finally asked, "You want to stop them? Or just keep them from circling back?" "Both," Gideon said. The next morning, word came through Boone. They tried again. 2 counties over. But this time, someone followed them. "Who?" Gideon asked. "A neighbor. Took photos. Got license plates. Caught a partial image of the clipboard guy walking back to the van with a cash envelope." Gideon leaned back. "Anything on the plates?" Switched again. "Registered to a scrap dealer in Winslow. Reported stolen. And the kid? Trey's in protective custody. Says he's scared to testify." "He should be." Boone sighed. He said they're watching people. Not just for money. Said Dane told him they'd take what they need if people didn't pay. Gideon's jaw tightened. "Then what are you waiting for?" he asked. Boone didn't answer. Later that day, Gideon and Ellis drove into town. Not for groceries. Not for gas. But to make a list. They stopped at the feed store, the co-op, the lumberyard. Quiet places where locals swapped information faster than officials did. They asked simple questions. "Anyone been by claiming to be from the county? Seen any new vans lately?" Get asked about property inspections. Most said no, but 2 didn't. A woman in her 60s named Nora said someone came to her door 2 days ago. Said they were from the Hazard Readiness Board. She couldn't remember their faces, but she remembered the clipboard and the smile that didn't reach the man's eyes. Another man, Jonah, a retired lineman, said they'd visited his shed when he wasn't home. His security light triggered, but they were gone by the time he got out there. They left behind a folded flyer. Gideon asked to see it. It looked real, watermarked, branded, but the fine print was gibberish. Made-up citations. Scare tactics in bureaucratic language. He handed it back. "They're refining the playbook," he said to Ellis. "Getting better at looking real. Still sloppy. Sloppy is what makes them dangerous, because they'll get desperate." That night, Boone called again. "Jarvis is in custody." Gideon stood still in the kitchen, coffee mug in one hand. "Where?" "Flagstaff. Tried to run a pitch at a mobile home park. Someone called it in. He ran. Deputies tackled him in a drainage ditch. Did he talk? Not yet, but they found 3 sets of keys on him. One matches a vehicle dumped outside Taylor. The other 2, still checking. What about Dane? Gone. Gideon didn't sleep that night. He sat in the workroom, going through maps of the area, sketching arcs with a pencil, trying to chart where they'd already been, where they might go next. Ellis was awake too. He stood at the porch rail, smoking quietly, eyes scanning the black tree line. When dawn came, neither man looked tired, just focused. 3 days later, it ended where it had started, with the crunch of gravel in the driveway. Only this time, Gideon and Ellis were ready. The van wasn't white anymore. It had been painted a dull green. The logo on the side now read, State Environmental Review Board, Mobile Inspection Unit. But it was the same model, same dents, same squeaky side door, same driver, Dane Carter. The man stepped out like he owned the place, clipboard in hand, sunglasses hiding the glint in his eye. He had a new partner, someone leaner, younger, but the same aura of fake confidence hung around them both. They didn't see Ellis crouched behind the tractor shed with binoculars. They didn't know the new trail cam was live streaming. And they didn't notice Gideon sitting quietly just inside the screen door, Jasper beside him, tail wagging slowly. Dane approached the gate. "Mr. Lane," he called, his voice smooth, practiced. "I believe we may have gotten off on the wrong foot last time. I'm here today with official documentation, your flag for secondary risk review." Gideon opened the screen door and stepped onto the porch. "You don't stop, do you?" Dane smiled. "I don't think you understand the severity of—" "I understand enough," Gideon interrupted. "I understand that you've changed names, vans, cities, and you're still trying the same scam." "No scam here," Dane said, holding up a laminated sheet. "We're contracted under state emergency prep standards. Just need 10 minutes to verify. You really think I'm stupid?" Dane dropped a smile. "I think you're alone. And people who are alone are usually easier to handle." Behind the barn, Ellis stood, still as stone, camera rolling, rifle across his back, silent witness. Gideon stepped down the porch, slow. "You came back here because you didn't like that someone told you no," he said. "You came back here because you wanted to make an example." Dane smirked. "I came back because people like you are all bark." "No," Gideon said. "I'm just a dog who doesn't bark twice." He raised his phone. Dane's eyes flicked toward it, recognition, hesitation. "I've been streaming this for the last 4 minutes," Gideon said. "Every word, every lie, every step you took onto private land. You've been recorded, geotagged, and sent straight to the sheriff's department cloud." The younger man behind Dane shifted. He looked suddenly less sure, eyes darting toward the van. "You're bluffing," Dane said. "No," came another voice, from behind the tractor shed. Ellis stepped out slow, rifle now cradled across his chest, but not raised. "We're not bluffing." Dane turned, eyes wide. "You think we're scared of you?" He spat. "No," Gideon said. "I think you're scared of truth. That's why you hide behind new names, fake uniforms, and half-baked legalese." He stepped closer. "Truth doesn't need to shout. Doesn't need to dress up in official seals. It just stands where it's supposed to and lets liars talk themselves into a corner." A siren in the distance now, closer than last time. Boone on her way. The younger man took a step back. Dane turned to him, furious. "Don't move." But it was over. They heard the cruiser before they saw it. Dust kicked up along the eastern ridge, lights flashing, engine roaring. Boone pulled up fast, radio clipped, hand already on her holster. Dane froze. Gideon didn't flinch. He kept his eyes on the man's face, watching the moment arrogance turned into fear. "Mr. Carter," Boone said, stepping out. "We've got more than enough now. Hands where I can see them." Dane hesitated. Ellis shifted. Boone unclicked the safety. Dane raised his hand slowly. The younger man followed. 2 more deputies arrived a minute later. Dane was cuffed. So was his partner. They didn't speak again, not to Gideon, not to Ellis. But the look Dane gave Gideon before they shoved him in the back seat, Anger, disbelief, something deeper, said it all. He hadn't expected to lose. Later, Boone stood with Gideon on the porch. "We've got warrants for multiple counties," she said. "He's linked to scams in 3 states. Property crimes, wire fraud, impersonation, maybe even conspiracy. You name it." "He'll walk," Gideon said. Boone nodded. "Maybe, but not quietly." Ellis stepped up beside them. "You think there are more like him?" Boone looked out over the hills. "Always are, but now people are watching." She turned to Gideon. "You did more than stop him. You pulled the curtain back." "I just stood my ground." "Sometimes that's all it takes." 2 weeks passed. The local paper ran a headline: "Scam crew busted in multi-county sting. Locals say rural strength saved the day." They didn't name Gideon. He preferred it that way. But word got around. People stopped by, brought pies, left thank you notes in the mailbox. One man offered to fix his generator for free. Gideon didn't ask for any of it. He just nodded, said thanks, then went back to the barn, the fields, the porch. Ellis stayed another few days, then left at sunrise without a word, just a wave and a fresh thermos of coffee left on the railing. Boone sent a letter a week later. It said, "Thanks for reminding us that real strength doesn't always wear a badge." Gideon stood by the window that morning, Jasper at his side. The ridge was quiet. The land was still. But something had shifted. Not in him, but around him. And sometimes that's enough. Like, comment, and subscribe if you believe the world needs more people like Gideon. Quiet strength that doesn't ask for attention, but still makes all the difference.